have an issue with time travel stories. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Kate Hunter. Today I want to talk about time travel in stories. And I'm only talking about this because I recently watched Kate and Leopold. So, going with that film, I feel there's a lot of issues when it comes to time travel stories. And I don't mean like Doctor Who where he goes off and sees stuff or whatever, though he does cause a lot of issues. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy time travel stories, because I actually really do. I actually like watching those sort of things. I like anything that involves going back in time. But if we were going to pull it apart, what I don't like about time travel stories is when, well, in like Kate and Leopold, for example. Leopold apparently is from a very wealthy background, but he doesn't have the funds no more. So he has to marry someone who does have funds. He's also an inventor, supposedly. And he manages to time travel to the future, accidentally, meets this wonderful woman from the future who is a career-driven woman who obviously has an opinion and is able to do as she wishes because she's in the modern day. They obviously two fall in love, and she travels back in time to be with Leopold and live happily ever after. It's good, it's fluff, it's just a story. It's just a feel-good romantic drivel story. But I have issues with these sort of stories. The starting off point is Leopold doesn't have money. He has a title, but he doesn't have money. So for starters, he needs to marry someone who does have money. Yes, it's wonderful that he marries the love of his life, Kate, but ultimately because she's gone into the past, she doesn't have money. So him marrying her keeps him at square one, which is they don't have money. He just marries the love of his life, but she just doesn't have any money. Granted, at the end of the film, she lies about where she's from, so people might assume she has money. So that would mean that she's now having to become a con artist in order for them to assume that she actually has money. That's the main issue that I don't like about these sort of films, is when somebody's in a dire situation, they meet someone from the future, they go back into the past, and then it's like, oh, they live happily ever after. It's like, well, what about the aftermath? They're still in a situation where they don't have any money. The other situation is she is a modern woman, a woman who is able to have a business, a woman who can say what the hell she wants because she's from the modern day. We are now in a situation when we can cover that sort of stuff. And with all that modern mentality, she's now taken that into the past. And yes, maybe for Leopold in particular, it may be really refreshing. But everybody else around her, it's going to be really strange because she doesn't fit in with society and what society deems to be normal. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there wasn't women out there that was gobby or women out there that could own businesses, because they did. There's actual evidence that women owned businesses, and a lot of women obviously fought against the system, hence why you have things like the suffragist movement later on. It's not a new idea. But even so, they are of their time. So they know how to present themselves of their time. They know how to walk and talk and act as suitable for their time and their class. She needs to learn all this, though it's assumed that she already is part of that world. So that's another thing as well. Like, you're having to try and learn about a world that, yes, it is the past, but it's also a different culture, a different religious belief. And it's having to adapt to that new culture and that religious belief. It's another world, basically. So that's my other issue that I don't like. The other thing that you do tend to see, and they especially did show it in Kate and Leopold, which was actually really interesting, is because of him travelling to the future, it meant ultimately that the elevator, or the lift if you are from Britain, was never invented. Bear in mind, he himself was not genuinely the actual inventor, because clearly he is a work of fiction. The character of Leopold is a mixture of a genuine duke called Leopold, who was based in Britain at the time. But he apparently made the elevator, which we all know was a different person. But I liked the fact that because he, in this fictional world, never invented the elevator, they don't have the elevator. There's issues like people are falling down the elevator. This thing that was so normal to them, it doesn't exist anymore. That in itself is also really strange, because it's very good that this thing has disappeared, because obviously it was never invented, But also it would mean that the idea of an elevator should technically disappear from people's minds because it was never invented. But that's just a different thing about things happening in the future. It's the same with anybody going into the past and killing Hitler, for example. Then ultimately World War II wouldn't have happened, or at least he wouldn't have been in charge of it, for example, if they were going to do that. But that would mean that in our time, even though we have Hitler now because he is what we know of, that would mean that if someone went into the past and assassinated him, someone else would have then taken over the war, so then that other person would start to encrust in our mind. So instead of us going, yes, World War II was Hitler's war, no, we'd say World War II was whoever else's war. So it is interesting that they had these doors where the lifts were, and obviously people knew that these lifts existed, but ultimately they start to disappear. But then people are still using steps and wondering why and getting really annoyed that the lifts are not working, and people know that there's lifts there and they're not working. It's like, but they would never have existed. That thing wouldn't have been there at all because he was not there. Or maybe it's about a time scale. Maybe he needs to be away longer for people to not remember. I don't know. These are just some of the bugbears I have about people who travel in time and the sort of things that they kind of gloss over. And it is mostly when people travel back to the past rather than people traveling to the future. Because people traveling to the future, 9 times out of 10, depending on who that person is that's traveling, isn't really going to have that big of an impact, or at least this is what we think. It will not have that big of an impact. Because there is a lot of things that have clearly happened throughout history that we just unfortunately don't remember. But if people hadn't done that thing, then obviously we would not be in a position that we are today, basically. But yeah, when people go back in time, it really annoys me because it's like, how are you able to fit in that time? Like when you watch Outlander, for example, Claire is able to go to the past and she's already got this wonderful knowledge of being able to work plants, suss out what plants would actually heal people, and ultimately she's able to get herself a job. She's able to then be able to somehow simulate into society, and she is able to survive, basically. She's able to have a life, and she manages to be protected by the wonderful Jamie Fraser. But again, what if you just randomly went into the past? Is there going to be anybody there to look after you? Are you going to have the skills to be able to keep on surviving? Because most people nowadays don't even know how to start a fire from scratch. So the fact that we would be dumped in this time, I don't know about you, but I personally would probably be really struggling. I would probably be put in the really shitty jobs if I wasn't already put in prison for assumingly being a witch for my modern ideas. And obviously it really does depend on what period you're going to. But this is the thing. You've got to think about all these factors of like, well, what period are you going to? Are you actually going to get affected while you're there? Like, can I get affected by diseases while I'm there? What skills am I able to take to that time to be able to survive? Are people even going to be able to understand me? That's a big one that people tend to forget about. Is that the further back you go, there is going to be snippets of stuff that people might be able to understand. But ultimately, our English is different to the English of what they had in the past. So these are just my bugbearers about time travel stories, and yes, I'm reading too much into it, and it should just be a fun story of they went back in time, they did a thing. But it just makes me wonder that if this was actually genuinely possible to be able to go back in time, then it's like, how do you fit in this culture, which is very different, because it is a different culture, different religious beliefs, different outfits, different language. It's a whole different culture. It's basically like going to France or going to Italy or going to Romania or something. It's that basically, just older. So that's what you need to think about when you do time traveling stories, is you are basically going to another country because the religious beliefs, the attitudes and the language is going to be different. Are you going to be able to fit in? Unlike modern day, when you do go traveling, there are people looking after you. You go to a hotel, you get to know that people, overall, most people will know your language, so even in small bits. Nowadays, we have devices to be able to get us around, to be able to communicate with people. But if you're going to pass, obviously you can't have any of that. You can't just whip out your phone and be like, what did you just say? So this is just some of the things I think about sometimes when I think about these sort of films. It was mostly from watching Kate Leopold recently, and it just made me go, no, this doesn't sit well with me. She has no money. You are still screwed. You are still number one. But anyway, what's your thoughts on this? If we could time travel, do you think we need to think about all these sort of factors, or do you think time travel should be where we're like in a bubble and nothing affects us and we get to just observe it? I know I'm thinking too much into it. That's why I just thought it'd be a silly little video of me just saying my 2 cents about what I think about time travel and the kind of things they get really wrong about it. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are about the idea of time traveling, and if you could time travel, where would you go? Let me know down below, and I'll see you in another video soon. Thank you for watching.